Hello and welcome to another episode of Mordred's Community Multiplayer EU4 Political Chat. As always, joined by co-host Brother Zale. Zale, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty great, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Slightly different picture from a Great Powers perspective. Not too large of a difference. Biggest thing from previous week, Baja missed the session. Uh, Unfortunately, at this point in the game, 16-14, so it was 1880 or 1582 to 1614, rather pivotal years. The AI doesn't scale well at this point of the game, so kind of fell behind. Any other surprises from a Great Powers perspective?
I'm looking for number 6, even with the AI. That's still it's kind of interesting to me with all the other powers we have going around. Um, yeah, they're just kind of sticking in there.
They are hanging in there. Tuscany sitting just outside at 1300 dev. Manchu, Portugal, Maywar not far behind, all over 1,000 dev. Um, but yeah, Mamluks still pretty powerful country. We'll take a quick look. About 200k manpower, which is a little bit low compared to their neighbors, but economically over 200, so doing okay in that space. Um, yeah, pretty strong country here. So, past session in Europe, relatively quiet. One war was fought. It was a 1v1, Hanover versus Bavaria. Hanover ended up getting a little bit of land, I believe the Palatinate state. Um, let's see if anything else. Yeah, just these three provinces came out of that war. Any feedback on that?
Yeah. So from what I heard, that the state of Planet was just like an agreed transfer, and they just kind of fought a war just to fight a war because both of them, I imagine, have been relatively bored, or at least Mind Boy has. He hasn't really been able to engage in a lot of wars. Um, so it seemed more like that was just a nice, friendly, let's lose a few 100,000 men rather than any sort of major thing.
Yeah, uh, unfortunate for Mine Boy, but his Bavaria's become almost a buffer state, dividing the East and the West. This session hasn't been a ton for him to do. I wonder, do you see Bavaria gaining any provinces in the next few sessions?
Yeah, quite easily. I mean, supposedly James gonna be dropping out, so um, I mean that leaves all of Italy for him to sort of work out
No,
a deal
he's
with
not
somebody.
dropping. That was a
He's not.
joke.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, hmm, I do think he'll either see some expansion in the next two sessions, or he's gonna die in the next two sessions. I think those are really the only two options for him. He might just sit there and do nothing for the rest of the time, and everyone ignores him. But given how much trade he's stealing from people, or could potentially steal from people, um, there's a lot of economic incentive to get rid of him and to secure kind of a more fortified border, especially for somebody like Hanover or um, I'd reckon you or Hanover probably stand the most to gain from taking over parts of Bavaria.
And then other major factor in Europe, the French or Franco-Spanish-Irish War ended, essentially undid the results of the first war. I ended up making a deal with Panda to swap the two states of South and North Brabant for Schweldlig-Holstein to recognize Hanover's contribution in those war efforts, and then um, made a deal with Spain for colonial Colombia. Um, Surprising to you or as expected?
I didn't expect the uh, Colonial Columbia, though I'm not really surprised. It is surprising that you don't have Calais, which I understand, the economics and the bonus that England or Ireland gets from it. I understand that, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think, the staple port, um, more or less, to be expected. I think that it's more of people agreeing not to spend an entire session in a deadlocked war than really any sort of lasting deal, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Something interesting to note: the war left me in a significant amount of debt, um, high levels of war exhaustion, which have some serious negative economic consequences. So while France does look rather large and still sits number 5 on the Great Power list, when you dive a little bit deeper into the numbers, max manpower being an important one, um, Tuscany actually has surpassed France. So in a 1v1, I think Tuscany would actually take down France at this point in the game, which is interesting to note from an outsider's perspective. Tuscany was kind of down and out, ended up fighting Spain pretty early, won the war but went bankrupt, and has slowly clawed back, retains or owns all of Italy now, has the ability to do a tag swap, um, and now probably number 2 in Europe behind Ruthenia. Any thoughts on Tuscany's rise?
Nah, when Martian decided to invade Spain and to invade the Mamluks, it was pretty much a guarantee that Jamie would be able to recover. And Jamie's a great player, so obviously he'd become one of the strongest nations. Italy's just such a great region. He has control pretty much of both the 2 end nodes there, and trade nodes. I mean, of course. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, not much to say. Just the backstab or invasion of Hungary never came, and so of course Jamie would be able to recover.
And pivoting over to the New World, we have New Württemberg, better Mexico, South Mexico, and then a pretty beefy Portugal forming here in the south. Anything you'd like to call attention to? Oh, Canada as well. Anything you'd like to call attention to as far as the New World goes? What are you expecting to see as the next couple of sessions come and go?
There's 2 things that really stand out to me. The first one is, given how slow they've taken to expand these colonies because of the wars and stuff they've been kind of locked into. I'm surprised that the East Asian nations, particularly Manchu, haven't, or maybe Japan. I think Japan's a better position. Yeah, haven't kind of expanded, gotten a colony there. There's a huge amount of land that they could have been, sneaking and taking and stuff. Perhaps the reason is they were worried of an invasion from myself, or more realistically, the Bahuanas um, player, and that could be the main reason. But otherwise, if that's not what they're afraid of, I don't know. I think it's kind of a interesting move that they haven't been more involved there. And the second thing is, of course, the Caribbean. The fact that it's not been like super colonized is rather surprising, because that's one of the first things most people will go for.
Yeah, it bothers me that this area has not been colonized. Like you said, it's a very popular one. It's an important trade node for the New World region, and it actually is some of the highest dev. Um, some 10 development provinces, untouched, uncolonized. So a lot left to be colonized in this area. Portugal obviously dominating the Brazil area. Maybe the Caribbean's next, but yeah, I'm a little flabbergasted by this. It'll be interesting to see. It's almost too late for it to have a strong impact. We're already at 16-14, and there's barely 10 ducats in the Caribbean, which is just shocking.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me too much, given how the game's been going. Brazil or Portugal would probably want to keep most of their trade either in Brazil node or going to Sevilla.
Yeah, they have it going to Sevilla through the Ivory Coast currently.
Yeah, so there's not much incentive for anyone who has any of the money in the region to push it to the Caribbean when they can just get it all to go to Sevilla. So yeah, and then of course New Spain or not New Spain, but Spain and Ireland have been locked in war, so they probably weren't able to expand nearly as much as they want to, which I think is the risk you run into when you make a continental Ireland, especially when the only reason Ireland, for instance, has a colony or 2 colonies is because he got a player. Sirkis was able to get slotted in as Norway. Because I don't reckon he'd have really any colonies without a player vassal doing that for him.
Yeah, typically the play you see would be the third idea group, rather than going quality, would be exploration, but that would leave Ireland quite exposed. And considering the amount of land they hold, um, yeah, it would have been tough for them to hold on to it while also taking a colonial idea. Maybe they could have taken a fourth idea as exploration and slowly built their way up, but yeah, they wouldn't be where they are today, that's for sure. And let's pivot now. Kilwa, unfortunately, Charles had to go, was replaced by a new perm. Um, Tricky spot for Kilwa. I was able to get a colony right on its border. Um, what do you think Kilwa's options are moving forward, with France having claims on its provinces and armies positioned?
Well, the most logical thing would be for him to either talk with Spain or talk with Tuscany. Um, Tuscany probably would be the best option for him to cement an alliance with. And it's like, hey, we'll split up Mamluk land, and then, you know, I'll help you fight against your regional rivals, in their African colonies, and secure, a bunch of war score down here, and then, yeah, you help me, not have to go siege out the land up there. I think, of course, if I was Tuscany, Jamie, I'd want Kilwa to come help. That sort of factors in, but I think just in terms of for Kilwa, the most logical choice would be that. I would say Bahmanis, but of course you have Helena's dropping out, so there's no Bahmanis player. And even if there was, like, the fact that they're sieged out and weren't white pieced away pretty much guarantees that they're not going to be in a position to do anything, especially after a session of AI.
We will have a player in Bahmanis on Saturday, but like you said, they are in a tough spot, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But that's an interesting option with Tuscany.
Yeah, I think if it was me, that'd be the angle. No no offense to you or
yeah,
Gabs,
no,
that's the angle I'd be going for.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go in against the Mamluks, you still have a lot for Kilwa to gain. I think from Tuscany point of view, if Kilwa doesn't go against the Mamluks, there's not really as much incentive. Having someone to siege out that sub-Saharan African stuff from Spain and Portugal is all right, but unless, I guess, Kilwa could try to finagle a deal where they give a lot of that land, like Mali and stuff, to Tuscany. Is that Kilwa over there in or Ireland in
Ireland,
Portuguese Guinea?
Yeah, it's Ireland, and Benin is actually an Irish vassal that's currently being annexed.
Okay, so yeah, I'd say that's even more reason for Kilwa to try to find an alliance with Tuscany. To a lesser extent, you could say Hungary, but Hungary would have to move through Tuscan lands. I don't really see it happening. Then, of course, he could. The odd thing out would be a deal with either you or Spain. You would be the most logical one, just like hey, I'll invade this Spain stuff. You invade that Spain stuff and leave me alone, basically. So yeah, I think Kilwa is in a very estranged position, but he does have some pretty solid options. It's just up to other players if they want to work with him or not.
And we'll pivot north now. Golden Horde had one, maybe two player wars with Ruthenia. It was hard to tell. Were these just land trades? Was it war of appeasement? What's the relationship between Golden Horde and Ruthenia?
Yeah, so there was two. Basically, the original plan was that I would transfer him some steppe lands, but because Sirkis got slotted into the Mewar position, I couldn't afford to lose those lands as soon, because I was and remain convinced that Sirkis is trying to invade me as soon as possible. even if he doesn't take the step lands, definitely for Coruscant, my vassal. I don't imagine he's going to come up for the actual Golden Horn lands, but I do imagine he's going to go for Coruscant lands and Transoxiana.
Oh,
So
that's a smart
which
vassal. Oh, it doesn't have its cores anymore. That's
yeah, I thought it
unfortunate.
would, but unfortunately, yeah, I thought it would, but it doesn't. So that's kind of a
Yeah, that's a bummer.
ouch. But what you gonna do? But yeah, so bottom line was Curb Ruthenia didn't want to wait. He and so he just decided to attack me. And I didn't really. I was busy fighting, so I didn't really care. And I still don't care. He kind of sorry, put it beyond there. He kind of felt bad, I think, but everyone and their mother was telling, including myself, was telling him to attack me. So it's like, I don't know. It's whatever.
Is he gonna keep
It's
coming?
we'll see. I don't know. I don't think so. There's not much reason for him to, but he could if he wants to. There's not really anything to stop him. Um, but I kind of doubt it because he could have taken more if he wanted to. He didn't. He would have if I believe if he was going to continue coming, he would have gone for Crimea first.
Yeah, it is
The fact he
interesting the
didn't
land
take
that he
that,
chose. Crimea obviously being the quickest way for him to get Persian trade up into his region. Um,
yeah, and that's why I think he's not going to come after me because I think he's really just going for the manpower, the step lands for more manpower.
yeah, Ruthenia
Which
manpower number one right now, and hasn't even really built any soldiers' households. So
yeah,
yeah, it's gonna be
so
interesting.
that leads me to believe, and he's going to probably make moves either against Ireland or more likely against Hanover and France, or he's expecting for Hungary to make moves and be in a lot of wars on Hungary's behalf. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be an interesting session for Ruthenia, I think.
And this past Saturday, we had we'll call it a hand grenade thrown into India. Sirkis obviously was supposed to play the 13 colonies. Maywar dropped out after the previous session, and at the last minute, Sirkis asked or volunteered to play Maywar. Um, Turned out to cause a little bit of chaos in the region. Timurids had also withdrawn, so he was essentially the only player surrounded by AI, and took advantage of a interesting situation. Won a war against Timurids, was declared on by Bahmanis, which allowed Japan to come in, and now we have Bahmanis not in a ton of debt, but out of manpower. We have Sirkis drowning in debt. Relatively low manpower himself, but winning the war, the ability to stab out if need be, and Japan making slow but steady gains from a siege perspective. Um, like I mentioned before, Helena is withdrawing, but we do have a sub to play Bahmanis, or we are continuing to look for a new perm. It is a difficult spot, I will not lie, but if you want experience finding player wars, let me know. Um, if you can just outlast Sirkis here, he's going to have to stab out or else go bankrupt. Should be an interesting war. What are your thoughts on the Indian region?
It just seems like the standard fare, man. For some reason, this community seems to be keen on playing in India for a session or three, and then dropping out or something, and some new player comes.
We have had
So
quite a bit of rotation in India in previous
yeah,
seasons.
so I don't know. I'm not surprised. It's just like it's just one of those reasons because it's so rich. A lot of people are they don't want to sit through playing a weaker nation. They'll see an opportunity to go play it, and then life happens, and they're like, okay, well, I'm done now. So I don't know. There's really not much for me to say. It's like it's a rich region. People are always going to fight over it, and it's just a revolving door of people getting put in last minute, which I'll admit, I'm not a big fan of. But it is what it is.
Any surprises from Japan and Manchu making their intentions pretty clear with regards to India?
Yeah, I'm surprised Manchu's taking this long. I said it last time, I'm gonna say it again. maybe he was low on manpower because of all the civil wars and stuff the previous player in the AI had as Korea. I don't know, but or not manpower, but I think it's in manpower. I meant mana. Um,
He is still a
but
little bit
yeah,
behind on tech.
there's
Um,
um,
yeah.
of course, this is shooting myself in the foot, but I don't see any reason for him to not have already been in the Samarkand node, knocking on my door. Unless his mana situation was just a lot worse than it was. Then, if Rayleigh's just being nice to me, then that's fine. But it's weird that he didn't instead use that mana to sort of more quickly integrate Ming, or to go maybe colonial or something. I don't know.
And Japan,
For Japan,
yeah, they
yeah,
made a
Japan.
few interesting moves. They've got quite the little vassal swarm going now. Brunei, Divet, Khmer, and Pasai, all vassals. Um, a number of who, I believe, yep, quite a few cores to reclaim. Should be some fast expansion. What are your thoughts on Japan?
Yeah, Eratos has done a great job, and I think he's made some pretty smart moves, some pretty great moves. Um, but I honestly think that it's not gonna amount to much. No offense to Eratos, but I think Yugi's gonna have this really fun sort of player war against Bachmanis, hopefully, this upcoming session. Um, but I just get the feeling that uh, the session's gonna end before he can really bring this East Asian power block that he and Rarely have developed into conflict with anyone else of um, significant size, right? Because the way it's shaping up right now, it's going to be Meiwar, Japan, and Manchu against Bachmanis, and then I'll help the best I can, but I'm non-factor. Um, then I'll run into eventually Ruthenia and Hungary, but I don't know the rate we've been going if we're going to really have the opportunity to get that far down the line. So it's going to be very fun, hopefully, to watch the sort of shenanigans that they try to pull off to be more involved, because I get the feeling that they want to get more involved, but I could probably just talking out my arse here. So
No, I agree. It's interesting with the absence of an Ottomans and a Russia. There's almost a gap between East and West this game that you don't typically see. Obviously, Russia has the ability to quickly colonize Siberia, which puts them in conflict with a Manchu or a Japan or who's ever in the China area. Um, and then Ottomans obviously typically push into the Persia node and play around a little bit with some of the Indian expansion, but not having them, I'm not sure, like you said, if there's enough time for them to factor into the European conflicts.
yeah, and to that like effect, what I would honestly like to see, kind of taking a step back and looking at it, and what I would like to see is Meiwar and Bachmanis to just white peace this war, ally each other, and then Meiwar goes west. They consolidate Persia, that sort of thing. They push into the Mamluks and come into conflict with Hungary, and then Bachmanis goes east into Japan and Manchu. And I think that would be, even if Meiwar just stops at Persia, I think that would be a more enjoyable experience for everyone involved. Even if it does mean I'm probably going to die, but because I think that'd be longer, more lasting sort of player wars for Japan and Manchu, who have kind of had quiet sessions for this entire time, almost playing like single player or co-op game. Um, so I think that, and in terms of a Meiwar or a Bachmanis, I think that would be the more, I don't know, equitable choice, more fair choice, because Meiwar is risking losing a lot, or maybe not, maybe not. There's a lot of India to split up with Japan, but I don't know. My concern for Meiwar, for Sirkis, is at what point you let Japan into Bangladesh and that sort of stuff, and Manchu is going to get, I guess, Nepal. At what point do they say, okay, well, you're drowning in debt, you're tapped on manpower, like sure you're have a bunch of Bachmanis land, but you're still coring it. It's not it's no prosperity there, that sort of thing, and we don't really need you around anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
We'll see.
interesting. I almost wonder if Japan, due to the lack of other opportunities, once Bothmanis is taken care of, they may think, oh, I don't have enough time to get to Europe. No one else to attack except Maywar. It'll be interesting. That would be an interesting play to see Maywar and Bothmanis say, hey, this isn't worth it. Let's work together. And then see a Manchu Japan versus Maywar Bothmanis over the next couple of sessions. Yeah,
Yeah.
Asia's tough.
Well, especially you had a Majapahit, so I imagine deals were made there, but Majapahit dropped, so they had to change plans. There was for like 10 minutes an Italian player, so I think perhaps plans were made there. You had completely different people in India, right? So plans were made there, and completely different, Timurids and that sort of stuff, I imagine. Um, you have Portugal, who's not really pushed into Asia at all. You have England that hasn't bothered, and that sort of thing. So a lot of the threats and the powers that you'd have to kind of think about and prepare for in Japan, as Japan and Manchu, haven't really come to fruition. And they've made a bunch of deals, and those people have left. They made new deals with new people, and those people left or swapped to different countries. And yeah, this has just been a very sort of topsy-turvy multiplayer all around, particularly for Asia, but I think also for just about everyone else.
And we'll pivot back to Europe to wrap up. As we mentioned, relatively quiet session. It almost feels like it's a Cold War brewing. Quite a bit of manpower. Everyone's pretty much maxed 700k, 700, 900, 800, 600, 1.2 million. Everyone's got their armies built. Who's going to declare the first offensive war in Europe, in your mind?
Either Hanover or Tuscany, I imagine, or maybe Panda, maybe Ireland. I could see a lot of people going in against Ruthenia, but Ruthenia probably is not going to declare war against Europe, just because knowing Curb and his personality, and then he wouldn't want to fire the first bullet. And Martian has all of the Mamluk lands and potentially all of my land, the Golden Horde, he can expand into if he wants.
Yeah, it looks like the Hungarian army's posed for a day one war, so it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we have a player in the Mamelukes. As we mentioned, pretty rich country. Obviously Hungary was able to take advantage of Tech 17 or 15 in the soldiers' households to up its manpower, but Mamelukes still has a relatively impressive force limit. They actually have a larger standing army right now than Hungary. Obviously manpower will be an issue, but they've got some professionalism. They could make Hungary bleed in this war. So I hope we have a player.
That's only if Ruthenia doesn't join. If Ruthenia does join, Mamluk's pretty much done.
That is true.
Their one ally, Bakhmanis, is currently getting sieged out, so...
Doesn't appear as though Ruthenia is planning to day one join, so it'll be interesting. Hungary obviously put its armies in position to declare. Ruthenia is just chilling. Any closing thoughts? Anything you're looking forward to on Saturday?
For once, I don't really think I have anything, no.
Well, it should be an interesting session. This past week was a little bit low-key from a player war perspective, but I think it's pressure's building, and we should see quite a bit of fireworks come Saturday. So, look forward to it. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks, man.